Third strike anti-air is actually very similar to SF4 anti-air, with one key difference. I often see people give up here, and it frustrates me. Saying there's no point anti-airing because your opponent can just parry is like saying there's no point throwing because your opponent can just tech a throw. Instead of having anti-air that hard counters the jump, which is a scenario with a single right answer every time, jump-ins in 3S are a mix-up scenario that requires careful consideration from both sides. Third strike is about being unpredictable rather than being consistent, and so I'm here to help you consider your options both when jumping and on the ground. First, let's start with the basics. Let's say you're dealing with an opponent attacking with a jump-in, normal, and no parry. Even though true invincibility is very rare in 3S, most characters have an anti-air where the hitbox extends further than the hurtbox, making them ideal for anti-airing. These are quite strong, as there's absolutely nothing the jumper can usually do besides going for the parry, though note these attacks are usually quite unsafe when parried. This highly incentivizes jump-in parry, and you'll quickly find that forcing the opponent's hand lets you abuse your other anti-air options. If your anti-air can be cancelled, you can still cancel the parried move, which can cause opponents to have to unexpectedly go for multiple parries. Note what happens if the opponent simply gets hit by the first attack, however. The lowest reward option here also happens to carry the least risk. You can also anti-air with a jump normal. Neutral jump normals often have much better hitboxes than diagonal jump normals, and they can hit sooner than people expect. Additionally, if you're parried on the way up, you're often out of the way of their attack, and you can recover and attack again on the way down. If the opponent does the parry successfully, then suddenly you're the one being anti-aired though. Air throws are another unique option for Chun-Li, Ibuki, and Oro. Unlike in SF4, they tend to lose as air-to-airs to jump normals, but now they have a niche as punishes for an opponent going for air parries. Be aware that in this game any character can take an air throw, even if they don't have one. If you have chaining jabs, you can simply mash jab to anti-air. Jabs don't usually have a good hurtbox for avoiding jump normals, so they lose to jump-in attacks. This makes them very risky if you don't start with an anti-air option select parry. There's virtually no reward for this kind of anti-air, but the success rate is very high against jump-in parries. And some characters, on reaction to an anti-air jab, can reaction super. Supers juggle out of air resets in third strike. This super is parryable but unblockable, and Ryu can hit the opponent during the parry attempt. If anticipating a jump-in attack, you can always go for an anti-air parry. The opponent has to go for an attack at a very particular time, making the parry timing very predictable, and you can get a nice punish. In fact, with specific timing you can hit them with a grounded combo before they finish their landing recovery. If they have a multi-hit jump-in, they can use that to surprise anti-air parries. They can also punish a parry with an empty jump throw, often with a parry option select. This is risky and unrewarding, and it's also punished by this next option. A very common anti-air at high level play is simply a walk back low poke. Air attacks that whiff will be punished because trip guard was sacrificed, and empty jump parries are also hit. There's virtually no risk to this from the grounded player. And it requires quite an elaborate read from the jumper, which is generally unrewarding. Finally, some characters can anti-air with a cross-under quite effectively. These force your opponent to parry in the opposite direction from what they're expecting. So it's not just one jump-in parry and then full combo for the jumper. You need to consider jump-in multiple parries, empty jump low parry, Early air parries or air normals to beat surprise air-to-airs. Empty jump throw to beat anti-air parries. And backwards parries predicting a cross-under. Note that in all these cases, if the jumper actually gets the read, he's rewarded. Most people who don't play Third Strike write off jump-ins as overpowered because there's no hard counter, but play against a good opponent, you'll begin to realize that ultimately it's often the grounded person at advantage, because only he maintains the ability to fall back on blocking to dodge mix-ups. I've simplified things a lot, but it's actually even more complex. Some characters have very strong anti-airs compared to others. Oro and Urien get a lot of damage regardless of whether their opponent is grounded or airborne. Command grabs are unparryable and complicate things. And some anti-airs are just ridiculously hard or even impossible to parry. As usual, the safest option is usually the best one. The safest option for the defender is to block into light throw attack because it's almost impossible to punish even if the opponent predicts it. And the safest option for the jumper, really, is not to jump at all.